Let's take a look at what the celestial dance this week has in store for us. Today is Sunday and begins the exact conjunction between Mars and Mercury up there in Scorpio, and that will continue. They're traveling in sync for the next several days. I talked a little bit about this last week, but I want to unpack it just a little bit more. Uh, there are a couple different options in how we might invest our energy in what happens when Mercury, the ability to, you know, think, speak, say things that appear, with spontaneity. And, and then there's Mars, which is it can be a bit of a challenge to actually grasp how to best utilize the Mars energy because uh, there is an impulse that Mars always represents. Yet at the same time, one needs to be at some level sensitive to an aspect of Mars that doesn't often get played up, and that is that Mars as, yeah, it can be the warrior, but it can also be the protector. That uh, that energy that is there to, stand up for what is right. And you combine these two energies, Mercury, that ability to say something, and it could go a couple different ways. You could say that in some instances, the words that might leap off of our tongue, driven by the Mars energy, could appear caustic to others, caught in, in the in the sights of somebody wanting to present that kind of energy. I would have to offer kudos to the experience of this demonstration process that transpired this weekend all around the globe, where people were standing up to political authority, saying, this is not going to be accepted in the path that it currently occupies on the planet. And you can kind of almost feel in that Mars and Mercury energy that are, you know, but if you were paying attention, the presentation of this kind of energy was overtly peaceful, non-confrontational from the that rough side of the equation where people were wanting to get into fisticuffs with one another. No, no, not. This was a overt expression of that free will and the First Amendment rights to be able to say what you want without the ramifications of somebody saying, no, 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 you can't do that. We're not going to allow it. And yet, the conglomeration or the coming together of so many energies and voices on this demonstration day to say, we're tired of things going the way they're going because it is not in the benefit of the majority of us. So, it's Mars and Mercury. They're in the Scorpio. Mars has rulership to Scorpio. And oftentimes, Scorpio will get a bad rap. And the reason why is that we're still in the season of Libra, so I can throw this out there. The the ramifications of interaction between us. From the Scorpio perspective, what can transpire, and often does, is that there is a energy quotient of uh, interplay between people's vibrational space that can and often does have a tendency to, you know, transcend barriers and borders that we often place around ourselves to, in some essence, protect ourselves or our deeper inner thoughts and ambitions from being exposed to one another. Because, because what? Because what? We don't trust ourselves? Or maybe it's because we don't trust each other. The irony of this Mars Mercury conjunction that's taking place is that part of the reason for that thinness of the veneer that often separates us one from another is that honesty and trust in being open with one another. We're still in the Libra season for the first part of this week. That one another function is in play. That we may experience a comeuppance in our own worlds when someone says to us, oh, by the way, this is Scorpio talking, could be a Martian kind of energy as well, saying, I notice that some of the perspectives that you're portraying about your world aren't entirely honest. Now, let's put you in that position. And as someone has come up to you and said, you're telling me, your words, there's Mercury, your words are saying such and such and such. You're portraying this or painting this picture of yourself that is very colorful and quite dynamic and stuff. And from the Scorpio perspective, that often, reads between the lines and has that sensitivity to what else is going on, might show up and say, you know, I see something else, you know, and, you know, discomforting as it might be, the words come out. And what do they strike? They strike in your heart and soul, says this person actually sees an aspect of myself that I've been trying to hide. Has it been desperately? Yeah, it could be. Of who I am, because is it, do I not trust you or do I not trust myself to be open and honest enough to engage at a deep and meaningful level with others? These are very powerful and pertinent questions that we each, you know, are invited to engage with one another in the process of growing a level of soul competence of this experience, this earthbound experience where we have been given a perspective or a plan or a program of what is acceptable that may or may not be entirely to the benefit of ourselves and each other, and particularly to this planet that we live on. that it's likely time for some more profound questions, inner questions of soul awareness that are begging for us to engage in. Scorpio, intensity, one of the words for Scorpio. And I'm bringing up Scorpio just a little bit more this week because the sun this week is going to shift from Libra into Scorpio. Who are the Scorpio? What is the Scorpio part in each one of us that is going to be tapped on the shoulder and said, wake up this week to that part of you that is, you know, the transformer, the investigator, the researcher, the shaman, inventor, and sorcerer. These are all Scorpio archetypes that are coming onto the potential direction for this next month that begins this week. These are all avenues that ask us, quite in a penetrating fashion, to dig a little deeper into the process of investigating ourselves and one another in this life dance that is tapping us on the shoulder right now, saying, are you awake? Do you feel, there's something else within you trying to put in an appearance? This Mercury Mars dance is happening there in Scorpio. It can provide that opportunity for, you know, not necessarily easy conversations with each other, but meaningful ones. If we find the willingness to actually engage honestly with each other. Well, just before Tuesday, the advent of the sun going into Scorpio, we have the beginning of a new lunar cycle, the new moon, right there. 28 degrees of Libra, sun and the moon dancing together on Tuesday. I use the Sabian symbols a lot as, in a way, as a divinatory tool. It isn't necessarily that the words themselves should be taken so literally, more than there's an energy quotient that can be awakened within them if we were to meditate upon them. Well, the Sabian symbol for this particular beginning of the next lunar cycle, which right on the cusp of that shift of the sun from Libra into Scorpio, reads, and, in all this stuff that Dane Rudger and uh, Mark Edmund Jones were working with back then, there's an emphasis on man whenever they're talking about humankind. But please invite yourselves into the quotient of recognizing it's mankind, it's humankind, both masculine and feminine. Mankind, this is a reading of the Sapiens. So mankind's vast and enduring effort to reach for knowledge transferable from generation to generation. The keynote, a deep sense of participation in and commitment to social processes which seek to bring all men, humankind, truth, and a greater life. I- Can you feel the potential of what transpired yesterday in the No Kings rallies around the globe? That energy at work? We know that the potential for a greater life exists, and we're standing up to those who would seem to want to be in control and tell us, no, we're not going to allow you to do that. And we're saying, oh, but we are going to do it. And if you get in our way, we're going to change things. Further writing in this Sabian symbol. The most characteristic trait in human nature is the ability to bind time. Oh, yeah, time can take us off on so many different tenses. That is, to transfer to other men and women as yet unborn the harvest of his conscious experience and his deliberate endeavors. This ability far transcends instinct and biological mutations, for it is based on consciousness, choice, will, and self sacrifice for the sake of future human beings. Can you sense the messages being espoused through the global meetings yesterday? The importance of future generations being able to survive? It rests upon a deep feeling of the value of community. Its use increases this feeling and eventually destroys the roots of loneliness. We really require each other in this life dance. Here, the symbol suggests the technique that makes a life truly human. To join other men and women in the vast process of a living civilization is to fulfill the basic implications of the human stage of cosmic evolution. A stage characterized by conscious participation. Did you sense, as the demonstrations transpired yesterday, that conscious evolution right there? We, the people, are standing up for a brand new way of being able to engage with the life process that seems to be, in some fashion, trying to be curtailed by systems in place that no longer recognize that dynamics of individuality we each bring to offer to one another. And this new moon that Tuesday brings for us, right there at the end of Libra, says, wake up. Still Libra, as the beginning of this lunar cycle. The vitality of participation together, that is Libra. As you can see, Sun and Mercury, Mars and Mercury are definitely still dancing together. And they start to separate just a little bit there on Wednesday, the Mercury day, as the moon races itself into Scorpio and the sun sitting there just a half a degree away from entering into Scorpio. This will be the beginning of the Scorpio season, the land of the shaman, the land where mysteries are considered, a zone of interaction at a potentially intimate level where uh, exchanges, interchanges of uh, processes that we bring into any equation asks us to go deeper. My sense is that the realm of trust that the Scorpio realm brings up for our considerations rests on uneven ground where, we as such dynamic human individuals have created a version or a vision of what it is, how dynamic we really each individually are, but may not have willingly accepted the engagement with others of perspectives that yeah, may have created or could create loopholes in that great vision that we've invented of ourselves that, while discomforting in some sorts, require an honesty within ourselves as to whether there is true vitality in our dynamic expression of ourselves that exists on so many and some broader levels of inclusion with one another rather than separation from each other. The sun, as it moves into this early degree of Scorpio, is sitting in a yod, finger of God, with Neptune and Uranus. Now, what the finger of God aspect is it's two inconjuncts, which are 150 degrees. And an inconjunct is because the elements, here we have the sun sitting in water, we have a water element. Oh, actually, it's the 0 degrees Aries, which you can kind of see we're only 2 minutes into Pisces. The 0 degrees of Aries, uh, fire, fire and water. They don't exactly see eye to eye on how things should be. However, you know, both Aries and Scorpio are ruled by the same planet. There's our Mars again, except that Mars in an Aries scenario is not a Mars in a Scorpio scenario. And Uranus down here in air, an air and water. Well, our air capacities have this tendency to mentally wander to the far reaches of reality, whereas, the water signs, Scorpio being one of them, want to uh, find a containment within the water substance that is connection to all of life. That is what water is about. Fire is, it's it's a burning kind of energy. It wants to, consume things. And the whole idea of, getting together and stuff, no individuality. That's Aries. You can kind of see that, that water and fire and that water and air, these are different considerations. The sun sitting at the focal point of this yacht is the answer to what it is that this sextile between Neptune and Uranus are trying to, you know, come up with some level of camaraderie with one another. So the sun entering Scorpio says that are your thoughts, Uranus in Gemini, able to be contained within a camaraderie space that will question the meaningfulness of why we're drawn together? And from that Neptune Aries perspective, the potential for unlimited creative imagination, Neptune, in a fire sign that wants to start something, from that solar Scorpio perspective, what is it that right now we might start that is going to require an interplay between us that may or may not be the most comfortable experience that you've been through, but there's something, you know, kind of like an overtone that's taking place that says, you know, perhaps I need to do this because there's something that wants to awaken within me that I've always sensed was there, but I haven't really given it enough latitude to be able to develop because, I was trained, after all, to be this certain way and shown by my peers, by my parents, by society itself that I needed to do this, that, and the other thing in order to be successful. Successful at what? And is there longevity in that? Also, as the sun enters Scorpio, it moves into a square with Pluto, which is now going direct and has an affinity with Scorpio. The square, kind of a tense kind of an energy that, you know, we have water and air here again. Oh, yeah, we're just talking about that with our Uranus down there in Gemini. But this, you know, idea of edginess that Pluto, the planet of phenomenal level of transmutation, in the sign of Aquarius says there's a driving energy for what wants to wake up in me and in all of the life around me in this moment to something new. Sun coming into Scorpio, the realm where, the mysteries, the shamanic exploration of ways of living interaction on so many different levels. What potentially is being invited to awaken at this time that this, you know, potential structural intensity of that Pluto Sun square is, you know, it's asking us, am I willing to wake up to a portion of myself, of ourselves, that is going to be able to share in what life is worth in an effective enough way that we can each and every one of us be born anew? Yeah. And, you know, just for a little extra entertainment for the week, we have Mercury and the moon. Well, Mercury. We'll just go with the Mercury moving into a oh, grand trine from Jupiter to Saturn retrograde up there in Pisces, and our Mercury back there. A grand water trine. Water element. Think connections, energetic connection. That's what water is about. And this is all three of the water signs with Jupiter in Cancer saying, you know, can you sense the possibility of family being so much more than just your blood family? Could you feel that on Saturday as we in the demonstrations were together with one dynamic voice stating that we are family? There are factors afoot that we are all participating in together. Saturn, what is the structure from a Piscean perspective of the spiritual unity of what was trying to awaken as the potential for the meaning for our gathering together? And the sun, the vitality, that solar vitality, just entering into Scorpio saying, prepare yourselves to look beneath the surface. Don't get distracted by the bright lights, the glitter of gold and stuff. There are things afoot and on the move right now that are going to require that connective energy between us to do things together that we have not done before. That is the water trine that is going to be closing out this week. It basically, you can kind of see it just get stronger and stronger as the week goes on. With Mars in Scorpio up there saying, I want to play too. I'm going to give you the energy of the goddess, god warrior, to know that what is transpiring right now is something so dynamic and requires us all to participate in this dance. That's all I got for this week. We have things to do together. Not necessarily going to be the most comfortable, but you have to ask yourself, am I willing to change? Are there aspects of this great image that I have created about myself that might have holes within it that need to be filled by my engagement with you in a way that I'm not in a position to perceive as yet? I'm willing to dance into this newness and see where that goes. Are you? Ciao for now. That's it for this week.